On an old gourmet street in Hong Kong known as Spring Avenue, you'll find one of the most classic eateries in the area, the 7 Restaurant. The restaurant's talented chef, Sky Ko, specializes in southern Chinese cuisine and is so meticulous about the quality of the food that the place is always full of happy customers. The dishes are always delicious, which partly explains the restaurant's great popularity. One day, a rude customer bursts into the restaurant, cutting in line ahead of the people waiting to be served. Sky refuses to serve him, even though the man boasts about all the power and money he has. Before leaving, the disrespectful man laughs at his small shop and reveals that his boss has already hired a world-class chef to open a 3 Michelin star restaurant across the street from his. Meanwhile, in France, the king and queen have their first child and organize a big party to celebrate his birth. The food must be incredible, so they invite a renowned world-class chef to cook at the event. The lucky one is Chef Paul, a famous Korean chef who has been trained in the most prestigious French kitchens. Paul is very creative and has a special way of cooking, mixing the cultures and cuisines of different countries to always create innovative dishes. For this occasion, Paul presents the king and queen with a delicious dessert in the shape of a red egg, which according to tradition symbolizes a blessing for the newborn. The exquisite dish and the deep meaning behind it surprise the royals, who congratulate and applaud Paul's magnificent work with joy. After this huge success, he and his talented assistant, Mayo, return to the restaurant where they work every day, where they are congratulated on their great performance with the royal family. Amidst the applause of their colleagues, the owner of the restaurant announces that Paul has been promoted to executive chef of all the franchises. Paul seems somewhat uncomfortable, and despite it being a big step in his career, he declines the offer, mentioning that he has another opportunity in China that he cannot pass up. Paul and Mayo have been invited by an important Asian businessman to open their own 3-star restaurant in Hong Kong. Back on Spring Avenue, one of Sky's customers mentions that there will be modernization works throughout the neighborhood to attract more tourists, and informs him that the rumor about the opening of the new restaurant was true. Sky doesn't know whether to be happy or sad, because on the one hand he wants his small neighborhood to develop, but on the other he knows that more competition in the area would mean fewer customers. After that, Sky remembers when he was 10 years old, when his father, Mountain Co., used to beat him for not having any talent in the kitchen. One day, his father abandoned him to pursue his dream of becoming a renowned chef, leaving little Sky with his Uncle Seven, owner and chef of the 7 Restaurant. Since then, his uncle has taken care of him and taught him everything he knows about cooking. Today, Sky doesn't have many memories of his father Mountain, and he has no intention of reuniting with him. The next day, Chef Paul arrives in Hong Kong and goes straight to the market in search of a large grouper to cook. The fishmonger only has one to sell, and he decides to sell it to Sky, who always buys from him and believes he will cook it better. Paul complains that this is unfair, and to avoid any problems, the seller cuts it in half. Several days later, it's the grand opening of the 3 Michelin star restaurant called Stellar, located right across from the 7 Restaurant. A group of businessmen are the first diners at the luxurious restaurant, where they are welcomed and served by Paul and Mayo personally. Not wanting to go unnoticed, the 7 restaurant workers come out to announce a bunch of offers that are hard to pass up. Stellar's guards quickly try to stop them, which creates a big conflict between them and the people, which catches Paul's attention. Everyone insists that Sky is the best chef in the area, and when they see each other again, the two decide to compete to show off their fish skills. Paul goes first and gives a masterful demonstration of how to remove all the bones in an instant. Then Sky takes the piece of fish and cuts it into perfect equal pieces in just a few seconds. The audience goes wild and applauds them both, but even Paul is impressed by the neighborhood chef's incredible technique. One of the diners, who was responsible for announcing the results, assures them that this competition is not valid and enters them in the national cooking competition where they can really put themselves to the test. He also tells them that the winner of the competition will give their restaurant a good image and will be able to decide the future of Spring Avenue. If Paul wins, the area will be completely remodeled and modernized, but if Sky wins the contest, the neighborhood will retain its traditional essence. In a television interview, Paul mentions that the weak point of Chinese cuisine is that it is very conservative, and the dishes have remained the same for years. In contrast, Western cuisine is more innovative, and there are always new recipes that can surprise diners. Hearing this, Sky becomes even more interested in beating Paul in the competition. However, he soon learns that the winner of the competition will have to face the 2-time champion, nicknamed the God of Cooking, who is none other than Sky's father, Mountain Co. The boy is surprised to see that his father has achieved the success he wanted, but now he is more determined than ever to beat Paul and reach the final. That night, Uncle Seven returns to the city from his trip and calls Sky to meet up with him. Excited, the boy goes to a bar to meet Seven, and finds his father with him. Mountain tells him without compassion that he still does not believe in Sky's culinary skills, and that he does not regret abandoning him to follow his dream. His father's words hurt Sky deeply, but he hides his pain and promises himself to do his best to win the contest, proving to Mountain that he can be a great chef and a good person at the same time. Some time later, the day of the competition arrives, and the contestants have 90 minutes to cook whatever they want and present it to the judges. Sky starts by preparing a conventional duck, surprising the audience with his incredible technique of cutting the inside while keeping the outside intact. He then bakes it in salt, breaking the salt crust that surrounds it to reveal a delicious duck stuffed with vegetables and sauce. Paul, on the other hand, prepares a much more sophisticated and elaborate dish, presenting the judges with a delicate French foie gras with caramel and raspberry mousse. The jury tastes both dishes and gives both contestants very high marks, but unfortunately, it ends in a tie with a total of 37 points each. As there must be a winner, the head judge decides to declare Paul the winner of the competition, arguing that his dish was more professional and his plating much better. Sky leaves the competition defeated, believing that it is all over, but things at Stellar are not going as they should. While Paul celebrates his victory, the manager informs him that he will be replaced by Mayo for the final competition, as it would be much better for their image if a woman won the contest. Betrayed and confused, Paul tries to defend his position as head chef, but Mayo appears and reveals the boy's secret. It turns out that Paul has difficulty tasting certain flavors, especially those that are saltier. To cook, he uses an old notebook where he has all the recipes written down, as he cannot taste the food and improvise on the fly. In addition, Mayo reveals that she never wanted to be friends with Paul, and that she only used him to learn from him and surpass him as a chef. Disappointed, Paul leaves the Stellar restaurant, never to return. That night, Sky finds Paul drinking outside the stadium where the competition took place. The two talk about their past for a while and share a nice moment remembering what led them to become chefs. Sitting in front of the banner of the god of cooking, Paul tells him that Mountain has been his idol and role model. Surprised, Sky reveals that Mountain is his father, and although at first he doesn't believe him, the boy tells him the whole story, so the two end up throwing glass bottles at the banner and joking with each other. Claire, the owners of the Stellar restaurant, are trying to convince Seven to sell them his place when Sky and Paul show up. They reveal that they are now a team, and Paul tells them that according to the rules, since he won the contest, he also has the right to participate in the championship. The owners of Stellar leave the restaurant and call him a traitor, but that doesn't worry Paul, as he is now surrounded by people who are worth it. Over the next few days, Sky and Paul cook together and hone their culinary skills for the competition. They exchange styles and learn a lot from each other, developing a unique technique that blends Paul's creativity and sophistication with the advantages of Sky's traditional cuisine. Over time, they become good friends, and on the day of the competition, they decide to cook as a team. The presenters announce the participants in the event, where we see that Mayo has somehow also managed to get in. To start, Mayo prepares a delicate oyster dish, which looks great, but the judges don't seem to like it very much. On the other hand, Paul and Sky decide to make mapo tofu, with Sky helping with the flavors and ingredients, while Paul takes care of the texture and culinary artistry, cooking a traditional dish with a sophisticated and modern presentation. The judges rave about the dish, mentioning that it is perfect in every way and awarding Sky and Paul as the winners of the competition. A few days later, the two get together to talk about the grand finale. Paul mentions that the finale is individual, and decides to leave the spot to Sky, indicating that his problem with identifying tastes could play a dirty trick on him. Besides, he knows how excited Sky is to be able to beat his father and establish himself as the true god of the kitchen, so he decides to step aside. The next day, Sky finally comes face to face with his father in a studio packed with people. They will have 1 hour to cook whatever they want, and with nothing more to add, the presenters start the competition. Mountain starts cooking right away, but Sky is soon overcome with painful memories from his childhood, which distract him and prevent him from concentrating on cooking. Disappointed with his son, Mountain throws water in his face to get him to react and tells him to get cooking. Sky makes a dough that he then transforms into a simple noodle dish, something very basic for an international competition. For his part, Mountain makes a dish that mixes sweet flavors with an impeccable presentation in the form of a lava flow. The judges taste Mountain's dish and are amazed. However, when it's Sky's turn, the boy ignores the judges and goes straight to his father, to whom he hands the plate of noodles, the same plate of noodles his father had cooked for him just before abandoning him. Mountain tastes the noodles and is moved as he remembers old times with his son, and before leaving, he acknowledges Sky's enormous talent in the kitchen. The boy smiles and finally leaves the competition, leaving everyone confused, while Mountain finishes the noodles, crying with emotion. The film ends with Sky, Paul, and a large crowd of people gathered at the Seven restaurant, celebrating Chinese New Year as a family.